Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The world of Port Charles is one built upon a foundation of secrets, a cityscape where truth is a malleable and often dangerous commodity. For months, a particular secret has festered beneath the surface of one of its most prominent families, a ticking time bomb wrapped in the guise of a long-awaited blessing. Portia Robinson, a woman revered for her strength, her compassion, and her unwavering moral compass as a chief physician at General Hospital, has been living a lie so profound it threatens to dismantle every relationship she holds dear. The pregnancy, initially presented as a joyous miracle for her and her husband, Dr. Terry Randolph, was a narrative carefully constructed to conceal a devastating, shocking truth. The revelation that Curtis Ashford is not the biological father of Portia's unborn child was merely the first tremor, the true earthquake, the cataclysmic shockwave that has left the entire community reeling, is the identity of the actual father. It is a name that, when spoken aloud, seems to suck the air from the room, a revelation so grotesque in its implications that it redefines the very meaning of betrayal in Port Charles. The biological father of Portia's child is Marcus Taggart. To understand the sheer, gut-wrenching magnitude of this revelation, one must first appreciate the intricate and deeply rooted history that binds these individuals. Portia Robinson arrived in Port Charles as a single mother to Trina Robinson, a young woman of spirit and intelligence. For years, Portia carried her own secret, that Curtis Ashford, the charismatic and successful owner of the Savoy, was Trina's biological father. This was a truth she withheld, ostensibly to protect Trina from the complexities of Curtis's life and her own past mistakes. After years of tension, heartache, and eventual understanding, that truth finally came to light. The journey to acceptance was arduous. Curtis had to process the betrayal of missing 2 decades of his daughter's life, Trina had to grapple with the existence of a new paternal figure and the deception of her mother, and Portia had to earn back a measure of trust after her long silence. Ultimately, a fragile peace was brokered. Curtis and Trina developed a beautiful, strong father-daughter bond, one of the most heartwarming relationships in the city. Curtis, despite his initial anger, found a way to forgive Portia, understanding in part the fears that motivated her secrecy. They settled into a new normal, a modern family built on a fractured but mended foundation. Curtis moved on, marrying Portia in a ceremony that symbolized forgiveness, new beginnings, and a shared future centered around their love for each other and their daughter. Portia, for her part, seemed to have been granted a second chance, an opportunity to live honestly within the family she had always wanted. The discovery of her pregnancy, coming later in life, was heralded as a miracle, a symbol of this hard-won happiness, a child that would be born into a stable, loving home, a sibling for Trina, and a testament to the enduring love between her and Curtis. Enter Marcus Taggart. A former Port Charles police detective, Taggart is a figure from a darker, more complicated chapter in Portia's life. Their history is not a simple fling or a forgotten romance, it is a tangled web of shared trauma, deep connection, and profound loss. Years ago, before Trina was even born, Portia and Taggart were deeply in love. Their relationship was serious, committed, and filled with the intensity of young love. They envisioned a future together, a life built on a shared understanding of the world's hardships, given Taggart's line of work and Portia's burgeoning medical career. This future was tragically cut short by a devastating event that marked them both forever. Portia became pregnant with Taggart's child. Their joy, however, was fleeting. She suffered a miscarriage, a loss so profound it shattered the foundation of their relationship. The grief consumed them, but it consumed them in different ways, driving a wedge between them that proved impossible to remove. They could not navigate the storm of sorrow together, and their relationship ended, leaving a scar that never fully healed. Taggart left Port Charles, a ghost haunting the edges of Portia's life. He returned years later, a changed man, but the history was always there, a silent, unspoken presence. For Portia, Taggart represented a past defined by immense pain, a pain so acute she had spent years building walls to keep it at bay. His return to the city stirred old ghosts, but Portia was a different woman, a respected doctor, a mother, and a wife. She had constructed a life of order and principle, a stark contrast to the chaotic grief of her youth. Her relationship with Curtis was built on a different kind of love, one of maturity, stability, and public respectability. Taggart was a living reminder of everything she had worked to overcome. The circumstances that led to the single, fateful night that resulted in this pregnancy are a masterclass in emotional manipulation and perfect storm tragedy. It was not a planned affair, not a sustained betrayal carried out over months. It was a moment of catastrophic weakness, born from a maelstrom of fear, grief, and a rekindled connection forged in shared history. The trigger was Trina. Portia's daughter, the center of her universe, was facing a legal nightmare, wrongly accused of a crime and staring down the possibility of a lengthy prison sentence. For any mother, this is a paralyzing fear, but for Portia, whose entire identity is wrapped up in protecting her child, it was an existential threat. She was desperate, feeling the walls closing in, watching the system she believed in fail her daughter. In the midst of this turmoil, Curtis, the rock upon which she relied, was emotionally absent. Not out of malice, but out of his own parallel crisis. He was consumed with his own investigations, his own methods of trying to free Trina, and the immense pressure was changing him. He became distant, preoccupied, and less available as Portia's emotional port in the storm. She felt alone, terrified, and utterly helpless. It was in this state of extreme vulnerability that Marcus Taggart re-entered her sphere, not as a former lover, but as a fellow soldier in the war to save Trina. Taggart, the former detective, swung into action with a fierce, almost primal protectiveness. He understood the system, he understood danger, and he was willing to go to any length for the young woman he had always cared for, a sentiment deeply intertwined with his lingering feelings for Portia. The night it happened was the peak of the crisis. The air in Port Charles was thick with dread. A bad break in the case, a piece of damning evidence, a harsh word from a lawyer, the cumulative weight of it all became too much for Portia to bear. She found herself with Taggart, perhaps strategizing, perhaps just seeking a moment of solace with the one other person whose fear for Trina matched her own. In that moment, he was not just an ex-lover, he was a mirror reflecting her own terror and her own fierce love for her daughter. The line between past and present blurred. The shared grief for the child they lost 2 decades ago collided violently with the shared, immediate terror for the child they were trying to save. In a moment of profound emotional collapse, the walls Portia had so carefully built crumbled. The comfort sought, and given, was not that of friends or co-conspirators, but of 2 people bound by an ancient, painful history, seeking refuge from an unbearable present in the familiar, if destructive, embrace of the past. It was one night. A single, seismic lapse in judgment. For Portia, it was likely a confusing mix of comfort, grief, and a desperate attempt to feel something other than sheer panic. For Taggart, it was undoubtedly more. It was a reclamation, a moment where the past was not past, where the woman he never stopped loving was back in his arms. When it was over, the reality of their actions must have crashed down upon them with the force of a physical blow. The guilt, the shame, the immediate understanding that they had committed an unforgivable betrayal against Curtis, against Trina, against Terry. They made a pact, an unspoken or spoken agreement, to bury it, to pretend it never happened, to return to their respective corners and carry the secret to their graves. It was a temporary madness, they would have told themselves, a symptom of the extreme stress, never to be repeated or acknowledged. But the universe, particularly in Port Charles, has a cruel sense of irony. Shortly after, Portia discovered she was pregnant. The initial joy she and Curtis felt was quickly poisoned by a dawning, horrifying realization. The timeline was perilously ambiguous. Given her age and the fact that she and Curtis were also intimate, there was a possibility the child was his. But there was an equal, terrifying possibility that it was Taggart's. Faced with an impossible choice, Portia chose the path of least immediate resistance. She told Curtis the baby was his. It was a gamble, a desperate hope that the odds would be in her favor, that the child she so desperately wanted would be a symbol of her present, not a ghost of her past. She wrapped herself in the narrative of the miracle baby, using it as a shield against her own gnawing fear. Every time Curtis placed a loving hand on her stomach, every time he spoke of their future, it was a fresh stab of guilt, a silent scream trapped behind her smile. The unraveling was inevitable. In Port Charles, secrets are like shards of glass buried in soft earth, they always work their way to the surface, cutting everyone in the process. Curtis, a man whose career was built on uncovering truths, began to notice inconsistencies. Portia's behavior was off. She was overly anxious, defensive about doctor's appointments, and had a strange, tense dynamic with Taggart that went beyond their shared concern for Trina. A lingering glance, a moment of charged silence, a comment that felt too personal, Curtis's instincts, finely tuned from years of investigation, began to scream that something was wrong. His mind, however, initially traveled down a different, yet still painful, path. He suspected that the father might be his own half-brother, Marshall Ashford, given a brief, confusing moment of connection Portia and Marshall had shared in the past. This theory, while hurtful, was somehow more palatable than the truth that lurked in the shadows. The confrontation was a brutal affair. Pressured, cornered by her own lies and Curtis's dogged pursuit of the truth, Portia first admitted the baby might not be his. The devastation on Curtis's face was a sight she would carry with her forever. But she could not bring herself to name Taggart. She let Curtis believe it was Marshall, allowing a less painful, yet still significant, betrayal to stand in for the truly catastrophic one. It was an act of profound cowardice, a final, futile attempt to control the narrative and spare them all from the ultimate fallout. But a lie of this magnitude has its own momentum. Through a combination of accidental eavesdropping, a slip of the tongue, or the simple, relentless pressure of the truth, the final secret burst forth. The name Taggart was uttered, and in that single word, the world for Curtis Ashford, for Trina Robinson, and for the entire community, was irrevocably shattered. The immediate aftermath was a study in pure, unadulterated devastation. For Curtis, the revelation was not merely a betrayal, it was an annihilation of his entire reality. This was not a random stranger or a casual acquaintance. This was Marcus Taggart, a man who had been a persistent, complicating presence in their lives. Taggart, the man with a history with Portia that Curtis had always known about but had dismissed as ancient history. Taggart, who had been involved in the efforts to save Trina, who Curtis had tolerated for the sake of his daughter. The betrayal was multidimensional. It was sexual, of course, but far more damningly, it was emotional. Portia had turned to his rival, a figure from a past Curtis could never be part of, in her moment of greatest need. She had shared her deepest vulnerability with another man, and in doing so, had rendered their marriage a hollow shell. The fact that the child, the sibling for Trina, the symbol of their renewed love, was conceived in an act of such profound deceit, made it a living, breathing monument to his humiliation. Every kick Portia felt, every sonogram image, was now tainted. The future he had envisioned, teaching his son to play basketball, watching him grow up in a stable home, was now a cruel joke. The trust he had painstakingly rebuilt with Portia after the Trina paternity secret was not just broken, it was pulverized, ground into dust. How could he ever believe a word she said again? How could he look at this child and not see the face of the man who had destroyed his family? The anger was volcanic, a righteous fury directed not only at Portia but at Taggart, a man he now saw as a predator who had taken advantage of his wife's vulnerability. For Trina Robinson, the revelation is a psychological earthquake of unimaginable scale. Her identity has been a central theme of her young life. First, she believed Taggart was her father, forming a deep, loving bond with him. Then, she discovered that Curtis was her biological father, a shock that she eventually embraced, welcoming him and his family into her life with open arms. She had navigated the complexities of having two father figures, balancing her love for Taggart with her newfound connection to Curtis. She was the bridge between them, the living proof that family is more than biology. Now, that entire framework has been obliterated. The mother she idolized, the woman who taught her about integrity and strength, is revealed to be a liar of epic proportions. The baby she was excited to welcome as a sibling is the product of her mother's affair with the man she once called dad. The layers of betrayal are almost too numerous to count. Her mother slept with Taggart, the man she loved as a father for most of her life. This act fundamentally changes her perception of that entire relationship. Were his affections for her always pure, or were they tangled up in his unresolved feelings for Portia? It reframes her entire childhood. Furthermore, her mother has betrayed Curtis, the father who has been nothing but devoted and loving to her. Trina is forced to watch the man she deeply respects and loves be utterly broken by her mother's actions. She is trapped in the middle of a war she never asked for, her loyalties shredded. The foundation of her family, which she believed had finally settled into a happy, if unconventional, structure, has been revealed to be a sinkhole. The baby, instead of being a source of joy, becomes a symbol of the lie that shattered her world. The impact on Marcus Taggart is complex and reveals the depth of his character. For years, Taggart has been portrayed as the gruff, honorable outsider, a man of action rather than words. His love for Trina has always been fierce and unquestionable. His feelings for Portia have simmered just below the surface, a love that never truly died. In his mind, that one night was likely a rekindling of a flame that should never have been extinguished. He lost Portia once to tragedy, and in a moment of shared crisis, he found her again. While he bears equal responsibility for the act, his reaction to the pregnancy and its aftermath is fraught with a different kind of conflict. This is not just any child, this is his and Portia's child. The child they lost all those years ago was a wound that never healed, and now, fate has given them a second chance. A chance he can never openly claim. He must now stand by and watch as Portia, the woman he loves, is vilified. He must watch Curtis play the role of the expecting father to his biological child. He must grapple with his own moral failings. He betrayed a man who, while a rival, did not deserve this. Yet, beneath the guilt, there is likely a powerful, primal connection to this unborn child. He will want to be involved, to protect, to provide. This sets the stage for a brutal custody battle, not in the courts necessarily, but in the emotional landscape of Port Charles. Taggart is not a man who will easily walk away. He is a fighter, and he will fight for this child, even if that means going to war with Curtis and further destroying his relationship with Trina, the daughter of his heart. And what of Portia herself, the architect of this chaos? Her punishment is a living hell of her own making. She is now a pariah, viewed with a mixture of pity and contempt by those who once respected her. The shame is all-consuming. She has lost the love and trust of her husband, likely forever. She has shattered the image her daughter held of her, damaging their relationship in a way that may never be fully repaired. She is carrying a child who should be a blessing but now feels like a curse, a constant, kicking reminder of her moment of weakness. Every prenatal appointment, every baby kick, is now layered with anxiety and grief instead of joy. She is isolated, trapped between a husband who hates her and a former lover who represents the mistake that ruined her life. Her career, built on a reputation of competence and trust, is now shadowed by the scandal. The whispering in the halls of General Hospital is a torment she must endure daily. The weight of her secrets, which she carried for so long, has finally crushed her, and in its wake, it has crushed everyone she loves. The ripple effects of this revelation extend far beyond the immediate players. Terry Randolph, Portia's wife, is collateral damage in this explosion. Terry entered this marriage with love and trust, embracing Portia's family as their own. They have been a supportive partner, excited about expanding their family. Now, they are faced with the public humiliation of their wife's affair and the terrifying uncertainty of their future. The baby they were preparing to help raise is the product of infidelity. Their marriage, a symbol of modern love and family, has been fundamentally compromised. The anger and sense of betrayal Terry feels is compounded by the public nature of the scandal, forcing them into a painful position of having to defend or condemn, to stay or to go. The Ashford family unit, which includes Curtis's mother, Stella, and his brother, Marshall, is also thrown into turmoil. Stella, who welcomed Portia into the family with open arms, will feel a deep sense of betrayal, not just for her son, but for the entire family name. Marshall, who was wrongly suspected for a time, will have his own complex feelings of relief mixed with anger at having been used as a decoy for a far worse truth. The entire social fabric of their community is torn. Friends like Laura Collins, Kevin Collins, and Scott Baldwin are forced to pick sides, their loyalties divided. The scandal becomes the primary topic of conversation, a sordid soap opera playing out in real life, with real, devastating consequences. As the dust begins to settle, the path forward is shrouded in pain and conflict. The central, agonizing question remains, what becomes of this child? For Curtis, the prospect of raising Taggart's son or daughter as his own may be an insurmountable challenge. The child is a permanent, living reminder of the ultimate betrayal. Can he ever love this baby? Can he ever look into its eyes and not see the ghost of Portia's infidelity? The alternative, rejecting the child, is equally horrific, punishing an innocent life for the sins of the parents. For Taggart, the drive to claim his child will be overpowering. He has been given a second chance at the family he lost, and he is unlikely to quietly recede into the background. This sets the stage for a bitter and emotionally charged conflict over paternity and custody, a battle that will use this innocent baby as the ultimate pawn. Portia's journey will be one of atonement, if such a thing is even possible. She must face the consequences of her actions without the shield of her respected reputation. She will have to navigate single motherhood under the cloud of scandal, all while trying to mend her relationship with a daughter who may never look at her the same way again. She must also confront her true feelings for Taggart. Was that night merely a moment of grief-stricken weakness, or did it reveal a lingering love for a man from her past? Her future is one of isolation and hard truths. For Trina, the healing process will be long and arduous. She must reconcile the mother she knew with the woman capable of such a devastating deception. She must manage her relationships with both Curtis and Taggart, two men who love her but are now locked in a bitter feud. Her own sense of family and trust has been obliterated, and rebuilding it will require strength she has never before had to summon. The shocking identity of Portia's unborn child's biological father is more than just a plot twist, it is a narrative atom bomb. The revelation that Marcus Taggart is the father is not simply a matter of unexpected paternity, it is a revelation that weaponizes history, trauma, and grief, turning a moment of joy into the epicenter of a tragedy that has consumed an entire family. It proves that in Port Charles, the past is never truly dead, it is a ghost that waits patiently for the perfect moment to step out of the shadows and tear down the present. The fallout from this truth will reverberate for years, shaping the destinies of this unborn child, its shattered parents, and a daughter caught in the crossfire, forever altering the landscape of the city and proving that some secrets, once revealed, leave only ruins in their wake. The world of General Hospital has always thrived on dramatic twists, shocking revelations, and secrets that threaten to blow up the lives of its beloved characters. For years, fans have been kept on the edge of their seats, watching tangled relationships unravel, new ones blossom, and secrets linger beneath the surface just waiting to erupt. One of the most intense and emotionally layered storylines currently gripping the audience is the question of Portia Robinson's unborn child and the shocking identity of the biological father. While Portia has carefully tried to shield her life from past mistakes and complications, the truth always has a way of surfacing in Port Charles, and this time, the truth is bigger, more devastating, and more impactful than anything she has faced before. Spoilers have teased for months that the truth would be revealed in a dramatic and heart-wrenching fashion, leaving not only Portia reeling but everyone connected to her life shaken to the core. For a long time, Portia has carried herself with a sense of grace and control, especially as a doctor who takes pride in her career and the way she presents herself. However, beneath the surface lies a vulnerability she rarely lets others see. Her relationships have been complicated, particularly with Curtis Ashford, who has been both her great love and her greatest challenge. The two have tried to build a future together, but the ghost of secrets past has always hovered in the shadows, waiting to tear them apart. The lingering question of truth regarding parentage is one that soap fans know well, and in Portia's case, it is a question that could destroy everything she has worked so hard to protect. When spoilers first hinted that Portia was pregnant, fans immediately began speculating. Would this baby be Curtis's child, solidifying their bond and future together? Or would the father turn out to be someone else, reigniting old rivalries and sparking a devastating betrayal? The writers cleverly kept the suspense building, dropping breadcrumbs in conversations and interactions that left viewers questioning every detail. Portia herself seemed uncertain, which only heightened the drama. The very fact that she carried unease about the pregnancy made fans suspicious, as General Hospital rarely teases without payoff. Soon enough, whispers began to circulate that the baby's paternity would become one of the biggest bombshells in Port Charles history. The shocking revelation, according to the latest spoilers, is that the biological father of Portia's unborn child is not Curtis Ashford as many believed. Instead, the truth points toward someone far more complicated and unexpected, none other than Spencer Cassadine. This revelation shakes everything fans thought they knew, because the Cassadines are notorious for their dark legacies, manipulative schemes, and power plays that ripple through every storyline. To suddenly connect Portia's unborn child to the Cassadine family tree adds layers of drama that intertwine with nearly every character in Port Charles. The impact is seismic, and the fallout will affect multiple families, alliances, and relationships. For Portia, the news is devastating. Her entire world is turned upside down as the carefully constructed life she tried to build begins to crumble. She has spent months working to convince Curtis that their love is strong enough to survive anything, yet this revelation threatens to destroy him emotionally. Curtis has already been through so much: his struggles with addiction, his battles to find stability, his losses, and his constant desire to be a father. The dream of having a child with Portia was something that anchored him, giving him hope and purpose. To learn that this child is not his, but instead tied to Spencer Cassadine, would be a crushing blow. The betrayal, even if unintended, cuts deep, reopening old wounds and shaking his trust in Portia once again. The ripple effects go beyond just Portia and Curtis. Trina Robinson, Portia's daughter, has her own tangled history with the Cassadines, particularly Spencer. The irony of this revelation is almost too much to bear, as it pulls Trina further into a family she has tried to keep at arm's length. Spencer has long been a complicated figure in Trina's life, part love interest, part enemy, part ally. Now, with the possibility that Portia's unborn child is Spencer's, the dynamics grow more twisted than ever before. Trina is forced to grapple with her mother's choices, her own conflicted feelings about Spencer, and what this means for her family's future. Meanwhile, the Cassadines themselves will be rocked by the news. A child born into their family carries immense weight, as the Cassadine name comes with fortune, power, and darkness. Victor may be gone, but his legacy looms large, and Nicholas Cassadine will undoubtedly have strong feelings about his son Spencer fathering a child under such circumstances. The entire family tree shifts, and with it, the alliances and rivalries that have defined them for generations. Fans know that any Cassadine-related secret is rarely simple, and this revelation is sure to trigger a cascade of schemes, power plays, and conflicts that will dominate storylines for months to come. From a storytelling perspective, this shocking twist is classic General Hospital. It takes a personal story, Portia's pregnancy, and connects it to the broader canvas of the show, ensuring that the fallout is felt across multiple families and relationships. It's not just about one woman and her unborn child, it's about legacy, betrayal, love, power, and the cost of secrets. The writers have positioned this revelation to be one of those moments that fans will remember for years, the kind of jaw-dropping twist that people talk about in soap opera history. Portia's own emotional journey in the aftermath will be critical. She must face not only the pain of Curtis's heartbreak but also her own guilt and confusion. Did she knowingly keep the truth buried? Was she in denial about the possibility of Spencer being the father, or was this truly a shock to her as well? Fans will want answers, and the truth of Portia's decisions will shape how audiences view her moving forward.